Welcome to the final part of this webinar series on Australian grocery shoppers from Shopper Intelligence and from our friends at AFGC. My name is David Shukri, and it is very nice to be joining you again today. Hopefully you're having a spot of lunch, something that's going to aid you through the next 45 minutes or so. Guys, it's December. We have made it nearly to the end of another, I don't know what you'd call this year, but we've had another one of them. Everyone I know is feeling a little bit frazzled. Everyone's looking forward to a few weeks away and a little bit of downtime. So let's kick things off. How are you? Where are you? Get yourself involved in the chat. Let me know how you are, how you're feeling, and let me know where you are in the world. Now, we have talked over the last couple of months in this series. Hello, Vicky from Melbourne. Thank you very much. We've talked in this series over the last couple of months about occasions. We have talked about trusted quality and the role of price in sessions 1 and 2. If you haven't seen those, by the way, head to the Shopper Intelligence YouTube site or page, and you can check out the recordings there. Today, we are talking about e-commerce, but more broadly, we are looking at the way that this is changing grocery shopping, and this session is about overcoming some of the challenges and the pressures that e-commerce is putting you and your trading partners under. So let me go ahead and throw a poll out straight away to get you involved. Very simply, how does it feel when you are out there, or in a virtual sense, having your e-com conversations with your trading partners? 3 choices. Do you feel kind of frustrated? Do you feel as if whichever side of that conversation you are, it's not really going the way you want it to? Got a few of those coming in, not really on the same page. Do you feel kind of so-so? You know, we're doing okay, we're doing our best, we're muddling through, but could be better. Or do you feel confident, pumped, psyched? Do you feel we're on the same page, we're kicking goals, we got a plan, we know where we're going? Okay, thank you. Lots of people getting involved. I'm going to let that run for a little bit longer. Remember, you're using a poll, you've used the chat, some of you as well. Keep that going, put your thoughts, your questions, your opinions down there and get involved. And remember as well, you're going to get access to this recording next week. We'll share that link with you. And finally, whatever you do, don't duck out early, because there is some extra value on offer for you in around about 20 minutes or so. Some extra insights that we'd like to share with you, especially because you took the time to be on this session today. So it's a bit of a thank you and an opportunity to supercharge your e-com conversation. Okay, so a quick look at that poll. What have we got? 20%, hopefully you can see this on screen, 20% of you feeling frustrated, 74% of you feeling kind of a bit nonplussed by the whole thing, and 6% of you out in front feeling confident and feeling like you're kicking goals. That's fantastic. Good for you. Long may that continue. I think that is kind of what we thought would happen. That's kind of what we expected, anticipated from the conversations that we're having. So this session is all about making that better. If you're in the frustrated camp, we want to try and get you into so-so. If you're in so-so, we want to try and help you get into confidence. We want to try and give you the confidence. If you're in confident, we want to just make it even better. So give you the confidence that you're having the right conversation and that you are having conversations that are going to deliver for you and for your brand and for them, whoever is on the other side of that table, whether you're a retailer or supplier. So I'm going to pull that down to one side. First of all, we're going to start with our first lesson, first idea. Start with the priorities. In other words, have some solid insights in your pocket when you go and have that critical conversation. Simon's going to share some critical truths about where shoppers' heads are at in e-com today. Then, number 2, make it specific. Very much building on that first point, but getting down to the next level of detail to make sure that your conversation is real, to make sure that it's relevant to your category. Some more specifics in that section from the Shopper Intelligence Ecom program for you to take away and have a look at through your business. Finally, then, the third part today is a checklist of 3 things that you can have a look at today. Right now, at least when the session's ended, at least. Have a conversation on these with your team. Have a talk with your colleagues about where you are on these three important elements that we're going to talk through. Things that we hear a lot of people raising, and you might just have let one of them or two of them slip off the radar because you're on the dance floor. Ecom is evolving so quickly, and it's very hard to keep that kind of balcony view that you want to be able to marshal your resources and marshal the direction that you're going in. So that's probably going to bleed into a bit of conversation. I'm going to bring Sam, I'm going to bring Simon in, who I hope is still there. I haven't seen them pop back up on the video yet, but hopefully they will in any second now. We'll bring them in. There we go. Had me worried for a second. So we'll bring them in. We'll have conversation around that. And of course, I will keep my eyes on the chat as we go through. Let me know your opinions, your thoughts as we go through. Let's get this as interactive as possible. Sound good? Hope so. Give us a thumbs up if it is, if this is what you came for. Got a raised hand from someone. We'll have a look at that in a second, Christian. Maybe that was supposed to be a thumbs up. Don't know. We'll check in a minute. So 3 big things. And now speaker-wise, I'm relieved to say Simon and Sam are there, and you'll be very familiar with them because this is session 3. So I will simply say good afternoon, Sam. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Lovely to be back with you and Simon.
Lovely to have you. Lovely to have you. We do love a bit of weather chat. In our last week and a half, we've all been proper rugged up, but I think the sun has come out in Canberra as it has in Sydney today. Am I right?
Well, we're pleased that we won't be suffering sad.
Very good. Very good to have you, Simon. Hello. How are you doing?
Hello. Hello, everybody. Yeah, good to be here.
Now you were at the Woolly Supplier Conference, I believe. In fact, I think Sam was as well. But you went physically. Did you go? You went real?
It was very exciting to be in a room full of 1,000 people, some of which were wearing masks. So,
okay, I won't ask if you were one of them or not. But your number one takeout, 5 words or fewer. What was the big thing that you took out for it?
Well, 5 words. I'm not sure. Lots of takeouts. Collaboration, health, sustainability, ecosystem. Brad talked about an ecosystem of retailing platforms, big visions for the future.
Very good. I feel we may touch on some of these things as we go through the course of the next 40 minutes or so. Look, for my part, guys, I look after client service for Shop Intelligence in Sydney, New South Wales, and I like to do a bit of facilitation for sessions like this as well. But the experts on the session are very much Sam and Simon. They're going to be furnishing you with their gems of wisdom. So let's go for it. And let's start with what should be your priorities. If you're out there and you're dealing in e-commerce, it's moving fast. It's moving incredibly fast. You will, I'm sure, attest to that. And at the same time, you want to make sure you start at their bus stop. My favorite expression at the moment, kick the conversation off with truths that resonate for the other party. So let's give you some ammo, probably a bit aggressive to use the word ammo. Let's say some inputs to help you get that going. Simon, you've requested control. Hopefully you've got it, mate.
I have indeed. And yeah, hello, everybody. So let's start with the priority, right? I've been talking to a number of retailers in ecom, and they're very clear about what the priority is for them, and that's get the basics right. And specifically, the right images of your product loaded correctly onto websites in a clear and simple way that people can find. So if we then look at that from a shopper perspective, this is what we see from shoppers over the last 6 months. And the good news is it's reflected in what shoppers are telling us. So shoppers are saying, I am more satisfied with the layout, which includes things like navigation and so on, how to find stuff on the websites than I was 6 months ago. So that's a good thing. And that certainly reflects the priority that the retailers are asking for. However, you can also see on the slide that a number of factors, in fact, most factors have declined in terms of satisfaction over the last 6 months. There's some big ones there around the basics, if you like, fresh, out of stocks, quality, price, minus 11% on satisfaction. On a 6-month trend. But a couple there around, I just want to pull out as well in terms of sustainability and enjoyable to shop. Now, the reason to highlight these are from an importance point of view. So in other words, shoppers saying to us or telling us how important these factors are. sustainability is more important to the online shopper than it is to the bricks and mortar shopper. Now, if you remember the first webinar, for those of you who were on that, you heard me talk about the sharp trend towards trusted quality, and sustainability a big component of that. So it's a big trend happening. As we know, it was one of the big themes, as I just mentioned, from the Woolworths supplier evening the other day. Sustainability, really important. It's even more important to the online shopper, and yet in the last 6 months, a significant decrease on satisfaction. Enjoyable to shop, the other big factor that is even more important to the online shopper. So what do we mean by that? People love online shopping, and they want to love it. They want to get involved. They want to find what I want quickly, if it's a grab and go, or they want to be able to browse, be delighted, find new stuff, that sort of thing. Have fun with it. And unfortunately, satisfaction on that has declined significantly in the last 6 months as well. So yes, let's focus on priorities, but there are some notable declines in satisfaction over that time. So given that, let's have a look at the context on this in terms of, well, what's important to people, as well as how well is that being delivered. So just to explain this slide, what we've got here is a number of factors. We ask many different things, price range, etc. And we ask, how important is that to you when you're shopping online, as well as how well is that delivered. The vertical axis is important. So the higher up the slide, the more important that factor is. The further to the right, the more satisfied online shoppers are with those factors. And the first thing I wanted to point out was this black line here, which reflects the average of all bricks and mortar shoppers. So this is our bricks benchmark, and we'll be talking about bricks and clicks. Bricks is obviously in store, clicks is online. When we talk to bricks shoppers, on every single factor, they rate, or they are more satisfied with every single factor more than the online shopper. So the average is higher, but every single factor is rated higher as well. So there's a big, and that's very different to where we were 6-12 months ago. So there are big shifts happening from an online perspective. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing to point out is the big priorities. So here we're looking at the top left of the slide, and we're looking at some basics of things like fresh, quality, fixed low price, so price reassurance through a fixed price message and delivery. Out of stocks, very important, not low satisfaction. Location, navigation, how easy is it to find what I'm looking for? So very important factors, need to do better as a channel. David, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I just want to bring Sam in. Sam, a question on your thoughts on this, particularly because you see OOS or availability up there. Yep. There is a lot of pressure, supply chain pressure right now. One of your P's, the pallets that you mentioned earlier. How much of, if at all, do you think that e-commerce is exacerbating those supply chain challenges or feeding into something around availability?
So I think the out of stock metric is a really interesting one for us to dig into and to try to understand a little more, particularly how it compares to bricks and mortar. When I think about this, currently in Australia, the supply chains that we use to service the retail distribution centres are exactly the same as if the product's going to a bricks and mortar store or whether the product's going to be sold online. So whether it's physical or online, we follow the exact same supply chain path, irrespective of that final channel. We do know that there's been pressure on the supply chain, and you mentioned one of those issues, pallets. The other P would be ports, but they should be impacting equally bricks and mortar and online. We also know that the retailers have uptake of different technology. So for example, Woolworths are looking at takeoff technology, which will be micro fulfillment centres at the back of some of their stores to be able to service the online market, whilst Coles are investing in the Ocado technology. So I'm really interested in understanding from Simon how we can explain that out of stock measure when the supply chains are pretty much the same.
Yeah, look, it's a good question. I think that the key to this is how shoppers interpret the frustration of not finding what they want. And so they will tell us that, oh, well, I looked for it and I couldn't find it, and so therefore it must be out of stock. And we find this in the bricks environment as well, by the way. But the equivalent of that, obviously, online is I was looking for my brand or my segment or my category, depends on what they're looking for. I was looking for it and I couldn't see it. So that could be as simple as the image wasn't strong enough, didn't stand out enough. Or it could be that they were searching for it and the keywords or phrases they were using didn't line up with how, with the algorithms that connect you to the product. So in other words, it's not an out of stocks issue, or potentially it could be ranged, it could be on the site, it could be available, but because they can't find it, they're saying, look, it's not there. So I think it all ties back to layout and navigation, as well as obviously true out of stocks is in there as well, and the importance of, as I said right at the top, clear images laid out in a clear way and signposted well.
I think those general housekeeping issues are very imperative in the online world.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, Simon, I was just going to say to you on this, right? You look at this and you could say, this is fairly bleak, or at least quite pessimistic, and yet sales are up, online penetration is up. And I think that's probably a fair point to raise when, if you've got this information and you try to compare or contrast it with, say, your scan data or another historical view of what shoppers have done.
Yeah, look, it's a great perspective, and it does look a bit odd, doesn't it? It's saying, well, hold on, how can that be if everybody's jumping online and it's growing and yet they're dissatisfied? I think the simple answer to that is that the honeymoon period is over, if you like, for people. And what I mean by that is it's now very normal to shop online. It's no longer new and emerging for many shoppers, and it's much more broad church a platform than it was even 6 months ago. So if we look at the trends in who is shopping online, there is significantly more older shoppers. So our boomers, our over 55s, significant increase in the last 6 months. Also significant increase in millennials, right? So it used to be the Gen X's, the stereotypically, larger baskets and households and families and time poor and so on. It's now extending through the whole demographic. And that's driven by COVID. It's driven by lockdown. There were significant uplifts, twice as many uplifts driven by lockdown in the last 6 months compared to the previous time period. But it's not just a temporary thing. I think, there's a couple of things there that shoppers are telling us. They are realizing the convenience of shopping 24/7. It's quicker. They're realizing that the ability to price compare if they are price sensitive shoppers through the online platforms. And then the final thing that gives us clues to how this is becoming more normal and more familiar is the behaviors. So more people, well, a higher proportion of people, 72%, up 7% in the last 6 months, are grab and going. So in other words, I know what I want. It's routine. I'm coming in, I'm typing in the category, 81% using the search function. That's a lot of shoppers now shopping in a different way. It used to be, here are the pictures, I'm sorting through it. Now it's I'm finding what I want, I'm searching, and particularly searching by brand name as well, 51%. And all of those figures, significant increases in the last 6 months. So, it's more normal now. The honeymoon period is over, David.
They call it that for a reason, right? Anyone who's been through a honeymoon period knows you have to try that little bit harder on the other side of that honeymoon. Anyway, I won't say any more about that. So yeah, your key lesson out of this one, Simon.
Yeah, look, it's normalized. Expectations are higher because the honeymoon period's finished, and it all starts with getting the basics right. As retailers are asking for, at the basic level, get your image right, make sure it's loaded properly, make sure people are able to navigate to it and the layout is there. And then beyond that, clearly understand what the priorities are and get the basics right as well.
Okay, nice. So some key insights that you in the ecom community out there should be taking into account specifics around the behavior and the change and the things that need to be looked at. But the bigger picture as well is that you give yourself a solid foundation, a strong starting point to this conversation. This conversation that at least 80% of you, if not more, 90% of you feel could be better. You haven't yet got the confidence. So start it off with these kind of solid foundations, these solid evidence-based foundations. And then very quickly, you're likely to be asked, okay, fair enough. How does that translate into my category? What does it mean for me? What does it mean for my store? So then, of course, Simon, you're going to need some more tools to bridge across into that level of detail, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where the rubber hits the road, as it were. So I'm going to use this framework to kick this conversation off. And for those of you who work with us in our BRICS programs, you'll recognize this investment framework. We use it a lot, particularly with the retailers, in terms of understanding where different categories sit, and therefore where on the path to purchase and in what way, what factors should we invest behind each category. I'm going to ask everybody a question. Get involved on the chat. Type in where you think chips in the online environment sit. So if you're a shopper buying chips online, not in store, online, then which of these quadrants do you think it fits into? And you can type in the name, or you can type top right, bottom left, that sort of thing. Put it in the chat. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, let me explain this very quickly in terms of how this works. There's a couple of axes here. The first is intentionality on the x-axis. Basically, every category over to the right-hand side of this slide is high intentionality. It means it's highly planned. Pre-stored triggers are driving people into store. I saw it in the catalog. I saw it on TV, or on a website, and that drove me into the online environment to buy that product. Has implications for marketing and where on the path. Pre-store marketing investment also has big implications for how you set up your web page. So it's grab and go, right? So you need to make it simple for people, all the things we just talked about in the last section. This is the equivalent of a clean store policy applied to online. Now on the left hand side of the slide, more impulsive. So I wasn't necessarily planning to buy this, or I wasn't quite sure, but I saw a great price, or I saw a great product, or I saw something new or exciting, and that drew me in to the category or the segment or the brand, and therefore the role of the website is very different as well. Sorry, David.
I mean, I want to get it on. Tell you what we got. Shall I tell you what we got? Answer wise, a lot of basket drivers, which is not a crazy answer. I've got a few trick drivers. Dale has said differentiate. Jay said differentiate. Here comes the big reveal.
Well, before the reveal, Dave, you're getting ahead of yourself. I'm going to show you where it is from a BRICS point of view. So in store, from a chips point of view, it's all about drive the basket. So very quickly, the vertical scale is all about premiumization and retailer loyalty. So bottom left means impulsive, driven by value, driven by price, and there's a volume play there as well. Now, David, was most people differentiate? I heard a lot of differentiates out there.
I would say basket. No, I think most people were going basket, right, from what I can see.
Okay, well done for those who said basket, because you're right in BRICS. However, in the online environment, it is more about differentiate. So there's a couple of things going on here. First of all, it's in a different quadrant, but what does that actually mean? Well, the first thing is it's further over to the right, and that means there are more predetermined trips. So in other words, people thinking of chips, putting it on their list mentally or physically as they go into the website to buy, more likely to be triggered by pre-store marketing activity. So that's obviously important in terms of where you invest, not just on the path, but in what vehicles as well. We'll talk more about that in a moment. And then all the simplicity aspects that I talked about before. You've got to find it. Got to find it easy, because it's a predetermined, they already know what they want, right? So the website has to deliver to that. It's further up the slide. What does that mean? It means there are more opportunities from slightly different range, slightly more premiumized range, more premiumized brands. How do they stand out? They've still got to entice people, because it's still in the left-hand side. So how does the web page present the range and the brands? And it's new, it's different, it's exciting, try this. All of those messages which we almost take for granted when we have a shelf, right, have to be now loaded onto the page. And, you know, how do we do that? So the point is it's a very different category plan and different priorities, even though it's the same category, it's the same product, and actually it's the same shoppers a lot of the time as well. The expectations are very different. It's not a cut and paste from bricks into clicks.
Indeed, different trips and chips. All right, now opportunity here, if you are watching the session live, certainly for you to get some extra value that I mentioned right at the top and gain a key ingredient to take with you to your next retailer conversation. If you want the power to have this conversation that we've just had here with the example of chips, and we've seen how different it is, and you want to be able to go in and lead that conversation with your retail partners and lead the way in your category. So what the offer is if you'd like to know where your category sits on this map, just go ahead and type yes in the chat right now, and we will be in touch and give you the details in due course and talk you through what that means, what are some of the tactics and the strategies that go around that, and just give you that extra nugget, help try and ease some of that frustration, help to get you from so-so to confident in your next conversation. So hit yes in the chat. You could probably hit chat as well, and we'd understand what you meant. And then we'll get in touch and we'll tell you what that looks like for your category. So, Simon, there's a very good real example there of how things do change from one channel to the other in terms of a category role. And then what you must do, of course, is get into the detail and the specifics that are important to shoppers in your category, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we started to look at these in the first section. There are many factors that we look at. What I've done here is just pick out three very important ones. We talked about navigation. Linked with that is visibility of the range, and also the sustainability from a product lens as well. There's two angles on this. If you're a retailer listening in today, I know we've got a few, then you say, well, how do I win a strategic lever? How do I win sustainability? How do I drive that through my business? What categories are my go-to categories to really deliver greatest return on investment if I push the sustainability agenda? So, fruit would be one of the lead categories to start with around that. If you're a category manager or buyer, or looking after a category from a supplier point of view, then it's the same principle, but the other way around. It's like, okay, in my category, what's the priority? If I'm running breakfast cereals, then I really need to do a lot in terms of visibility of the range, and how effective is my website, or how effective is the retailer's website at demonstrating the range in a way that is enticing and not confusing to people. So again, the point here is understanding the priority in your category. And of course, if the two connect, then that is the holy grail of collaboration, right? You can go to the retailer and say, look, in breakfast cereals, it really is about visibility. Oh, and by the way, it's one of the most important categories for your business, not just mine, in terms of driving the agenda on visibility of range.
Yes, I love it. It's about our businesses together. Going to bring Sam in on collaboration in a bit. She's itching to get into that conversation about collaboration. It really does signpost the elements that you want to be bringing into that category discussion in terms of product. So we've talked category role, we've talked some product specifics. Then you've got another angle to this, another moment in the journey that a shopper goes on, which of course is insights that relate to the marketing and the communications component of your strategy. Simon.
Yes, so absolutely. There's many different levels to this, or layers, I should say. And look, and I could, there's lots of different triggers, right? Pre-store, in-store, lots of different things we can use to entice people. But I'm going to take one very specific example here of catalogue, and even more specific than that, the paper catalogue. Now, it was only, I think, just over a year ago where Coles decided to remove delivery of their paper catalogue to households. Still exists in stores, but the delivery was removed. A lot of chat at the time around what impact would that have. We've done some work on that over the year, a lot of work on that over the year, actually, because the results were a little bit surprising to us. So we did a lot of in-depth core work around making sure we got this right. But what we can say now, a year on, 1 in 10 category purchases are triggered by the paper catalogue. So so these are people saying, I saw it in the paper catalogue, saw the category in the paper catalogue, and I came into store or I came onto the website because of that. And the critical thing here is there is no difference between platforms. There's 10% in store, it's 10% online. So the paper catalogue is still having a role to play, and perhaps even more surprising, there's no difference between Coles and Coles and Woolworths. So 10% of Coles shoppers seen it in the paper catalogue, driven into store. Same for Woolworths shoppers, seeing that and driven into store or online. It's 10% for all the permutations of that. Now, if we then look at digital, how does that compare? So funnily enough, it's 10% again for driving into store. So paper and digital catalogues have equal contribution in driving shoppers into store. Of course, all of this is at total level, be different in your categories. However, much higher for the role of digital catalogue in terms of driving shoppers onto online. And even more so for Coles. So the digital catalogue drives, on average, 17% categories purchases compared to 10 in store. It's 18% there for Coles, 13% for Woolworths. So, I don't know, David, what do you think? Some surprises there?
There are certainly. I mean, there's some surprises. There's some which you would kind of say, well, I would expect intuitively more people to be driven online through a digital catalogue. So that kind of instinctive. But there are some that I think you would probably imagine, if you're out there watching this, are a little bit more surprising, a bit more unexpected, and it just goes to show and serves the point that this is the complexity that's been brought in here. It's not a linear path to purchase. It's a dynamic thing, and you can have a shopper that's dipping in and out at different places. And therefore, as businesses that are trying to serve that, again, this is why you need to be able to get under the skin of it, so you can have an evidence-based discussion with your trading partners about where to go next. Do you want to drive someone to store or online? Have you made that conscious decision about the activity that you're going to run? And do you know what's going to happen next? And do you know what the triggers are that are going to lead to the final moment of truth when they either click or put it into a basket? All of this needs that thought, needs that evidence to make it viable, to make it possible to have that conversation, Simon.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, a couple of things just picking up on what you just said. First of all, it's complex. It was nice and easy, wasn't it? In the linear path of purchase and the moments of truth, the 2 moments of truth. If you wanted to buy something, you had to go into store. I mean, it's much more complex now. So here's a model or a framework, if you like, just to try and put all this complexity into, well, what does it mean for you? And I think there are three things to think about, 3 stages, if you like. And the first stage is the pre-store triggers. So I've given an example here already from a catalogue point of view, and it's not just catalogue, is it? It's paper and digital. And as David just said, where do you want to drive people, and therefore what's the right vehicle to invest in? You need to understand it, you need to measure it, you need to understand the return on investment of that. Of course, it's much more than catalogue, whether it's above the line, below the line. There's a whole lot going on now in the environment of real-time personalized advertising and promotions to people, particularly around their needs and occasions, understanding the needs and occasions in real time. We talked in the last webinar about the importance of talking to the mindset, connecting with the mindset, pre-store as well as in-store. So number one, understand what those triggers are and measure them. Secondly, David mentioned this, where does it drive people? Does it drive them into a bricks or clicks platform? And does that sit with what you want? I mean, there's volume and margin connotations of investing in the paper catalogue or the digital catalogue. We've given some examples around that. Where does it take them in terms of that platform? And then the final stage, of course, is understand what's priority for your category. And the chips example reflected the fact that it may well, and it probably isn't, the same needs and the same priorities from bricks. If you're cutting and pasting your brick strategy into clicks, you are risking inefficiencies or maybe even irrelevance from a shopper point of view. So the category needs, depending on the platform that you've driven them to, are very different, and the strategies need to be different as well. So measure pre-store, understand where it takes people, and understand the different strategies or the plans that are, and priorities that are required depending on where they go.
We haven't planned to do this, but it just occurred to me. I know you've shown this framework in a couple of sessions that we've done now, Simon. So, and we've had a lot of people say yes to the category role piece. So that's fantastic. If you want that, if you want to be able to have that conversation, still got time to hit yes, type yes in the chat. I always say hit. There's no yes button, but you know what I mean. The other thing I was going to throw out there, just to layer on the value here, if you'd like us to send you this slide, just to have this framework, then just hit framework, type framework into the chat, because it's quite useful, I think, rather than to go, oh, did you see that framework they talked about in that webinar? There we go. Everyone's going framework. So I've just created a bit of work for ourselves, but that's fine, because I think it's important to have a framework and for it to be consistent and spread it through the business and say, hey guys, what do we think? Where are we on these things? Are we making these decisions? And a yes coming through as well. So this is good stuff. Brilliant. Okay. So that's part 2. Thank you, Simon. A lot of very useful specifics so far that really give you solid ingredients to take with you into your e-commerce conversations with your trading partners. I've already mentioned the yes, I mentioned the framework, so keep doing that. You've got another few minutes to register your interest in those 2 things. Now, we're going to bring Sam back in, certainly, and Simon for a little bit more as well into the conversation, and look at this as we round it out more holistically. Ooh, let's just see, where are we? There we go. So, take you through 3 things that should be on your checklist to review. Now, Sam, Simon, very privileged positions, I would say, to be able to talk to a very wide cross-section of retailers and suppliers. And there are things that are coming up a lot in those conversations. They're not necessarily new challenges. They're not complicated as such, but they are coming up again and again as areas of friction or as points that could be, going smoother. Often it's for no other reason than simply it's been another tough year, and it's really easy to find yourself caught up in the day-to-day, just trying to get through to the week, the firefighting and so forth. So to help steer you back towards, if you like, the big picture as you head into next year, heading into 2022, 3 things you should check on straight away. And we'll open this out into a bit of a conversation now. So the first one, have you got the right people in play? Now, I've spoken to a lot of people recently who said, we are looking for people in this space. We cannot find the people in this space. But Sam, pull it back out a bit. Wherever you are in your e-com journey, you need, I think you'd agree, to have a specific set of skills and a specific roles and a specific structure to enable your business. What do you think?
Absolutely agree, David. And I think I'd add another S there to strategy. So look, I think it's hard to miss just how quickly e-commerce has grown over the past 2 years. The momentum has accelerated both for retailers and for suppliers. And those that have a good strategy, the right skills, the right roles, and the right structure are the ones that are growing ahead of the rest of the market. I think that's pretty clear. And it doesn't really have to be complicated. And I know Simon's going to talk in a moment about the right basics, and that is part of it. But I think it's really important to understand within your business the e-commerce channel, to think about it not just as an adjunct to your strategy with your supermarket retailers, but having its own specific strategy that's going to meet those requirements for that retailer. And we saw from the data that Simon's presented just how differentiated those paths to purchase can be for both online and for bricks and mortar, which is an example of why you need to have a different strategy in this space. This also means, as it says here on the slide, that you need to have the right structure in place, you need to have the right skills, and you need to have the right roles, and you need to have the right capability in there. So from our perspective, and what we're currently seeing within the industry, is that there are some companies who have a really clear understanding of this and have put those things in place. That's kind of one group. We have the second group who are learning, testing, learning, failing, trying again. And then we have another group who are still really early on and embryonic in their journey. That doesn't coincide with size of organisation. So we've got some very small member companies who are very well advanced, and some very large companies who are right back at the beginning stage. But given that, what we saw again from Simon's data in terms of who is online and who is purchasing, it is sticky. Online is here to stay. So you need to set up that capability within your business pretty quickly if you want to take advantage of the online channels.
Very much so. Well, the point you made early on, Sam, about speed, and I know it's a truism to say things are moving quickly, but it does, I think, speak to a point, which is that potentially you may have to change that structure more quickly even than you think. And I remember talking to a lot of businesses back in the UK about 10 years ago about the evolution of their e-commerce teams. And it went very quickly, from one person to a centralized hub to a decentralized model. And actually most businesses, once they've been on that journey, reported that they could have done it 50% quicker. They were actually kind of chasing their tails a little bit. I just want to bring in a final poll, guys, and just to get a final sense of one thing as we start to talk about these kind of overarching or guiding principles. One thing that you feel right now you would like more of to improve your e-com relationships. So I'll launch it now. We've got 3 choices: more category insights, which we've talked a lot about today. More direction from the other party. So whether you're a supplier or retailer, is the one thing that you'd like is for the other side to just come with the direction and take the lead, or look, I don't know, I just want more. Just give me more. I just need more of everything. Insights, direction, or just more. And I'll let that run for a bit while we head into the next one. So I'm going to look to you. This is about, again, we've touched on this a lot, get the basics right. And the challenge to any business here, I think, is to say, well, can you hand on heart say you have got these things covered in e-com right now?
Yeah, I think that's the point. I think it's easy to run away with our own dreams and aspirations, right? I want to do this and I want to do that, and here's where we're going, and therefore it's easy to miss the basics and just take your eye off the very foundation of what your whole business is all about, which is presenting your product to the shopper in a way that maximizes the ability to convert that purchase. And so it really is, at the basic level, it really is about that photo, with the right resolution, correctly loaded onto the website, and then the ease of navigation. That is a very clear message from the retailers across the board. That's number one. Number two, clearly then the next step on from that is there's lots we can do, but what is the priority in your category? What is the thing that shoppers are looking for, or perhaps the thing that's most important to them, perhaps the thing they're least satisfied with, and not just from your perspective, but from the retailer perspective as well. Whereas how can your category, your brand, help the retailer achieve their objectives? That's what we mean by getting the basics right. And let's pick one thing and do it well. There are 100 things we could all do, but let's pick one thing and do it well, and move forward with that.
You just take images alone, and it's again, I sound like a broken record here, but given the pace of change, what was okay 6 weeks ago, certainly what was okay 6 months ago, may well not be acceptable anymore for shoppers, which is your first point, Simon, is that the speed of evolution amongst the shopper is phenomenal. And the point there is that they're not comparing grocery with grocery necessarily. They're comparing their experience in other industries with what they're getting in grocery. So it can well be a bit like painting the Harbour Bridge. I don't know if I can translate that expression into painting the Harbour Bridge. Should be the Humber Bridge or the Forth Bridge, but I think you get the idea. Once you got to the end, you've got to go back and visit it again. I'm sure you got something to add on that, Simon, but I'll just say, I'm just going to close this poll and give and share the results. So what one thing would you like more of out there? 59% of you, perhaps something we'll reflect on, Sam and Simon, in a minute. 59% of people saying more category insights. 27% of people saying more direction from the other party. So there's a material minority there looking for just that extra piece of direction from the other party. And 14% saying, look, whatever it is, it's great. Just give me more of it. I need more of it. So we'll touch on that perhaps now as we go into the third and final critical pillar that you can check in on with your team. And that is the right approach. Simon, there's probably a dozen things that we could have put as pointers here. It's about having the plan, about measuring, because what gets measured gets managed and all that kind of stuff, and the accountability. But what's your overarching thought and statement on getting this right and doing the best on this, Sam?
So for me, and I think really importantly, it's and I'm going to use this word quite loosely, it's about partnership. It's about setting up a partnership that's going to work effectively across the end-to-end value chain. But there's a big but, and the but is that the risk and the reward needs to be proportionate. So for this to work effectively, we can't have all of the risk at one end of that value chain with all of the reward at the other end of the value chain. So for it to be a true partnership, we have to ensure that we've got accountability for each other across that value chain, and that risk and reward is proportionate. I also think it's really interesting in that data that you just pulled up, David, in terms of the poll, when we reflect back on the first poll that you ran, which said 6% of those that are attending today are feeling confident in this space. So we're all, I think, working at pace, flexibly, hopefully agilely to be able to deliver about this. I do think it's an opportunity for test and learn. And to your point, it needs to be, you need to repeat that, because as sophisticated as we're becoming in this space, our consumers are becoming more sophisticated more quickly and demanding more.
Indeed, so Sam and Simon, building on that, one of the guiding principles behind why you set Shopper Intelligence up in the first place was to facilitate and enable collaboration. And I think you probably say, without putting words in your mouth, that there has never been a greater need for that to play out than in this world that we've just described for the last 40 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, it always is, but particularly here, I think, the partnership is the key word, Sam. I think that what does partnership mean? Where does it start? It all starts with an honest and transparent discussion. And I think that's, step number one is to have that. I was interested, it was a senior, I can't remember who it was, but it was a senior manager at Woolworths the other day in the supplier awards that said, I would like suppliers to come in sharing the challenges and proposing some ideas, but not feel they have to come in and solve everything or come in with a fully finished solution to the problem, because I want to work with you on that. And I think that's that principle of true partnership is an honest, transparent conversation up front to say, here's where we are, here's where the challenges are, here's where we think we should invest, here's some ideas, but here's where we think we should invest. And then prioritizing that, and we talked a lot about that in terms of what's the priority, based on shopper needs for this category in this channel or platform, and then the discipline to set the KPIs, set the joint category plans, monitor and track them. Don't deviate. Keep to the plan. Do the one or two things properly. And then if there are 100 ideas, that's fantastic, and put those into stage 2 and whatever time frame that looks like. But all the way through, keep that honesty and transparency of communication to and fro. Now, again, there's lots of commercial realities that underpin that. I get that, but that to me is what true collaboration and partnership looks like. And for us, at the heart of that, it's all about what the shopper wants, and having an honest conversation around objective data to drive you forward.
Terrific. Sam, Simon, thank you so much for your contributions today, and stretching all the way back to October when we started this series. I hope, if you're watching this session, that has given you something to build on, something to take away. We have had some specific questions in around how many people did we survey, how many people looked at this catalogue, that catalogue. Love to answer those questions for you. Please, we'll either get in touch with us, we'll reach out to you, and we'll furnish you with some of those answers. If you have any other kind of technical questions, of course, just reach out and we'll help you with those. Just got time left for a quick summary. Start with the priority. Understand what the issues are and focus on what matters most. I think that's what Simon was just saying at the end there. Make it specific, and this was the call out, and look for the evidence and the data and the insights that are going to help you to bring that to life and put that in play, and do it through that omnichannel framework. Loads of you have asked for that framework, so that's great. We'll sort that out. And go back and just check it again. How are you doing? Where are you at on people and basics and your approach overall? to take the lead in your category, find out where your category, or what your category role is online, I should say. Just go ahead. You've got another few seconds if you haven't already. Have a little think, then type yes, and we'll sort that out for you, and we'll send a framework to you as well with framework. Guys, that's about it. Thank you for joining us. Thank you again to Sam. Been a pleasure.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Simon. And I hope all of those who are attending today have a safe Christmas, and that your trading is very buoyant over that period of time, and that supply chains survive.
Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. Folks, this is our last webinar for the year. Follow us at Shopper Intelligence ANZ if you want to keep in touch with what's going on in the world of shoppers, and you want to know when our sessions are going to come back in the new year. And yes, as Sam said, have a smashing Christmas. Enjoy, take a break, take a breather, and we'll see you all again in 2022. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.